Daily. Well, Dr. Femi Adegbulu joins us now. He's a security consultant and also an international relations expert. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure to be here again. Thank you.
Well, when this broke, lots of people quite surprised, didn't know what to make of it, but the government comes up and admits, and ever since then, it has added to the several talking points about that same matter. What's your impression about this?
Well, in the first place, I think it's generally known now that Nigeria flouted its own law by that action. Not only did they flout the Nigerian law, which stipulates, for instance, the minimum amount that can be taken away from any country, it also flouted South African law. And so you don't expect, irrespective of how you're trying to justify your action, for other people to take lightly to the breaking of their laws. So to some of us who are watching, we feel embarrassed that Nigeria could even contemplate such a thing. It is true that we can flout our own laws with impunity here with no any repercussion. But you don't do that to other sovereign countries. I think that's the lesson we must learn, and that's exactly what's happening now. But some of us are seriously embarrassed that such a thing has happened, and we have not got any contrary explanation to actually absolve Nigeria of the error.
How will this affect our relationship with South Africa, for instance?
Well, normally relationship between two sovereign countries, let's say bilateral relationship, is always a give and take something. No doubt. You see, contrary to what other explanations I've heard, the fact is that we have tried to undermine their own sovereignty by flouting their law. And you don't expect a sovereign country that respects its own law to take kindly to that. I've said that before. That's very important. Now, apart from what has happened now, of course, it will further portray or portend Nigeria to be a law-breaking country. A country that does not really respect its own law, let alone other people's law. In that light, we have some deficit there in the eye of the international community, particularly South Africa. Of course, that is just by the way. It does not in any way really, it will not call for any serious friction between the two countries because we have a lot of things at stake. Okay, investment here and there. If you look at the investment now of South Africa in Nigeria, vis-a-vis Nigeria and South Africa, you see that it's tilting heavily in favor of South Africa. We know that. South Africa will not want to take any adverse effect that will jeopardize that, for instance.
Do you see them releasing these funds back to the country?
It depends on how our diplomacy is played. It depends on how this thing can be resolved diplomatically. So it depends on the machinery we have in place to be able to convince them. When I mean convincing is not, some of these things will be done behind closed doors. It's not something that will be in the eyes of everybody. For instance, if somebody wants a political position, a very big person wants a political position, and because he has been in the political wind for a long time, if he goes before a godfather to prostrate, you and I don't know that they are prostrated even to the wife. But all you know that tomorrow they are announcing as minister of this, minister of that. So diplomatically, Nigeria can employ all kinds of diplomatic tools to make sure that the money is retrieved because the money belongs to us, whether we like it or not, irrespective of the way it finds its way to South Africa.
Do you believe it was actually meant for us? Because even though Mr. Benita said he couldn't tell us the amount of a Chinook helicopter, the amount a Chinook helicopter cost now, don't you think if we go by what he just dropped by saying that amount is small, it is as well too small for any arms procurement?
Well, I don't want to really, let me say without prejudice to government apologists and military contractors. Now, I want to say that irrespective of the amount that is involved, the fact is that how the money found its way to South Africa, the medium of, the transport, the owner of the jet, okay, the modus operandi generally is very wrong. Now, because of the image...
Even for a black corporation?
Well, it depends on what you mean by black operation, because individuals that are dealing arms in South Africa, the company, okay, I don't think that company has even come to the picture, because I do not think that this is government that is selling arms. No, it's individual companies. I have not heard any statement made by the company that Nigeria is supposed to buy that arm from. I do not know whether black operation, whether white operation. What I know is that the money involved, the transport of that money was illegal in the first place from Nigeria and to South Africa. In the two countries is illegality. The lawyers have told you that much, except those who are trying to politicize it. Now, the medium itself, the person involved, gives a lot of room for people to begin to wonder, considering the relationship between this person and President Goodluck Jonathan, considering the office he's holding, that we don't have any clear-cut demarcation between that high office and politics. That's another room to really speculate. And so maybe something, we've not heard the truth about this matter. Just take it like that. We've not heard the truth. Because Nigeria, judging from antecedent, election year is 2015, for God's sake. The money could have been anything but arms. But
why to South Africa?
Why to South Africa? It could be to Saudi Arabia. It could be to Abu Dhabi. I mean, do you know how many of such monies have found its way to other countries? Is it the one that is apprehended we are talking about?
Assuming it's for arms, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done extensive research in security matters, even international relations and diplomacy. One wonders, tell us about, because, I mean, some of the things we read the papers, I mean, in the 80s, Iran, when they were involved in that war with Iraq, we saw how some chemical weapons were supplied to those countries, albeit illegally, some of them which were eventually recovered by United Nations as chemical weapons, which was used upon those countries. All of this flouted their international laws. So it's not like countries don't flout this law, but how does that work in the international scene?
Well, you see, espionage in itself is normally frowned at by every country. It's an illegal act to be a spy. But every country practices it. Every country practices espionage, but it is wrong in international law. So also is this one you're talking about. It now depends on who is doing what circumstances surround what action you are taking. That's what we are talking about. Our election year is just 2015. Look at the one that is the purveyor of this whole act. Look at the law of Nigeria that have been flagrantly flouted. Look at the law of South Africa. So in fact, the fact is even that people are still going to raise eyebrow as to whether the money was actually appropriated for. Where was the money taken from? Yet Nigeria has ordered, okay, it's our money. Where did the money come from? I think, I know people are raising that issue right now. So there are so many things that are wrong about this. So that is why some people don't even believe that it's for arms at all. People don't believe that it's for arms.
But let us go with government's explanation that it is for arms. And let us look at the reasons that have been proffered. What do you think could be responsible for declining relations between Nigeria and the United States? In spite of all that we're seeing, new visits down to Nigeria and all, what exactly is responsible?
In international relations, we don't have permanent friendships, we don't have permanent enmity. It's only permanent interest that exists. And in that, for instance, America will always put its money where its mouth is. And that is one thing I want you to know. Now, was it not the same America that volunteered to help Nigeria to fight Boko Haram? Yes, it was the same America with its allies. What happened in between? That America is now beginning to decline. There must be something we don't know.
What about the other countries? All of the countries that volunteered at that time, were they playing to the gallery when they said we were coming to provide that strategic assistance to Nigeria?
Not really. Not really. But something Nigerians may not know are some of the polities among the people that may not be open. And sometimes it may not be advisable to even be discussing such things because it's between governments. For instance, if I say, I want to help you, I see your apparent helplessness and hopelessness in a particular issue. Let me help you because I have the wherewithal. And I discovered that you that I'm coming to help, you are not even ready for the help. Yoruba people used to say that is a child that expresses a willingness to be lifted up, that the mother always lifts up.
Is it that we're not willing to be helped, or we're being cautious about being helped, especially when we've seen countries that have been helped and how those countries have turned out?
It's just a hypothesis I'm trying to make here. What about if we're not willing to be helped? America now say, okay, well, look at the people we are even trying to, so like they are not ready for this yet. They now decline. So if subsequently they now say, well, we don't want to give anything to a country that will not appreciate it, will you blame America? It's just a hypothesis. I'm not saying this.
Yeah, hypothetically
Okay,
too.
yeah.
Will these countries give anybody anything for free?
You mean America?
Any country that wants to
No,
help.
man. They will not.
That's not free lunch.
Course, but you don't expect America to come and help us without getting something.
So we have to be cautious in terms
We have to
of
be
how we
cautious.
accept
We have
this
to be
help.
cautious. The level of cautiousness now is between the two governments, and that's exactly what I'm saying. So the government knows why is hesitant in taking help from America. And America also understands why he doesn't want to do what he's doing. America may have his own selfish motive about Nigeria. Don't forget. It is America that predicted that they have been beyond 2015 as a collective Nigeria, you understand? So I don't want to go into all that because the facts are not very much on ground for us to begin to dissect, but everything is possible in international relations.
But